My wife mocked my low income at family dinner after I paid all her bills, so I served divorce papers and left her facing the life she deserved him, a 30-year-old guy. And for the longest time, I thought my marriage with Claire was perfect. We had the kind of relationship that everyone envied. We'd been married for 5 years, and it felt like we were living in a fairy tale. People always told us how lucky we were, how perfectly we fit together. And I believed them. Hell, I was the one doing everything I could to make it work. Claire had this way of making everything look easy. She was charming, beautiful, and always knew exactly what to say to make people feel special. At family gatherings, she'd rave about how hard I worked for us. I'd come home late after a long day, completely wiped out from the office, and Claire would be there with a smile, making dinner, talking about her day, and asking me how mine went. I thought it was all real. I was the breadwinner. I was the one putting in the overtime, doing the heavy lifting so Claire could focus on the things that mattered to her. And yet, every time we were around people, Claire would paint this picture of how we made things work, her subtle way of giving us both credit for what I was actually doing. At the time, I didn't mind. I told myself it was just her being sweet. She wanted to make me feel valued, right? The truth is, though, I was starting to feel like the only one putting in real effort. But it wasn't something I could say out loud, not without sounding ungrateful. It's funny, every time I'd get home late, tired from an exhausting week, she'd act like everything was fine. But deep down, I knew I was the one carrying the weight of our life together. I just didn't want to admit it. The whole thing felt perfect, until I started noticing the cracks. And at first, I didn't say anything. I told myself it was just part of the deal. Relationships are supposed to take work, right? But those little things, those little moments where I gave so much and got so little in return, started to build up. I brushed it off, until I couldn't anymore. A few weeks ago, we went to a family dinner at Claire's parents' place. It was supposed to be a casual evening, nothing special, just the usual small talk and laughs. But it didn't take long for things to shift. I remember sitting across from Claire, watching her talk to her mom and dad about the new project she was working on. She was animated, lively, clearly enjoying herself, while I tried to keep up with the conversation. But then, out of nowhere, Claire made this offhand comment about my job. He's always so busy with work. But honestly, it's kind of cute that he works so hard for so little, she said, laughing. Her parents chuckled along with her, as if it was all a joke. I froze. Did she really just say that? I tried to laugh it off, but the sting of those words hit me like a punch in the gut. I work my ass off to make sure she's comfortable. Hell, I've been covering every bill, keeping us afloat, sacrificing my own peace of mind, and she turns my efforts into a joke. I could feel my face flush, but I didn't let it show. I pretended it didn't bother me. Yeah, well, somebody's got to do the dirty work, I said, forcing a grin. But inside, I felt like I was drowning. The worst part, Claire didn't even seem to notice the weight of what she had just said. She just kept talking, switching topics as though nothing had happened. Her parents didn't even bat an eye, they were just as clueless. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I had become some kind of joke, a source of amusement in her life. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. She didn't mean it that way. Maybe I was just being too sensitive. But as the night wore on, I couldn't stop replaying those words in my head. And with every laugh, every glance they exchanged, I felt smaller and smaller. Was this really the woman I had married? The woman who was supposed to be my partner? The one who always painted our life as this perfect team effort? Because right now, it felt like I was the only one carrying it all. But I didn't say anything. I couldn't. What would I even say? I didn't want to rock the boat. But the hurt was starting to fester after that dinner. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It wasn't just the comment she made, it was everything leading up to it. Claire never seemed to acknowledge how hard I worked, how much I sacrificed to keep us comfortable. And it wasn't like I was some high-powered CEO, far from it. I worked in an office, a decent job, but it took everything I had to make sure we didn't fall behind on bills. I'd skip meals, work late into the night, take on extra shifts just to make sure she didn't have to worry about anything. But Claire, she never seemed to care about any of that. I'd see her scrolling through shopping websites, buying things for the house, for herself, like it was no big deal. New clothes, a new purse, some gadgets I knew we didn't need. Sometimes I'd hear her say, "I'm just trying to treat myself," as if it wasn't a big deal. And yeah, I tried to brush it off too. I told myself, it's okay. We'll figure it out later. I didn't want to be the controlling partner, the one who stopped her from enjoying the things she wanted. But at the end of the month, I was the one pulling out the credit cards, paying the bills, making sure we had enough to cover everything. Meanwhile, she'd be out with her friends, getting dinner or drinks, acting like everything was fine. I never complained. I couldn't, because when I did, she'd act like I was being dramatic or stingy. That was the word she used, stingy, like it was my fault I was scraping by. There was this one night I'll never forget. Claire came home, gushing about how much fun she had with her friends, and mentioned how they all went out for this expensive dinner. She was practically glowing, telling me about the new restaurant she tried, how they ordered this amazing wine, how much fun it was. And I sat there, stomach turning, because I knew we couldn't afford that kind of lifestyle. I wanted to be happy for her, but all I felt was resentment building up inside me. When I looked at our bank account later that night, I saw it, those dinners, those purchases. The little luxuries she'd been indulging in, it all added up. It was more than we could handle. And yet, here I was, working my ass off to make sure she didn't have to worry about it. I was the one who'd be left scrambling, paying for it all while she was living in her own world of oblivion. It wasn't fair. I was giving everything, but she was taking it for granted. It all came to a head one night when I walked in on Claire on the phone with one of her friends. I'd been working late again, completely wiped out, but I didn't mind. I had to keep going, keep providing. When I stepped into the living room, she was sitting on the couch, laughing, and I could hear her friend on the other end talking about some weekend getaway they were planning. I didn't think much of it at first, but then I heard her say, "Yeah, I just don't know if I can ask David to go. He's so busy with work, and honestly, he's not really in the position to spend that kind of money. He doesn't make a ton of money, and it's just a lot for him to handle." My chest tightened. The way she said it was like I wasn't even in the room. I wasn't just hearing this as a casual conversation. I was hearing my wife talk about me as if I was some afterthought, someone who couldn't even keep up with her lifestyle. I don't know what came over me, but I snapped. I walked up to her, stood there for a second, and just let out everything I had been holding back. "Are you serious right now?" I said, my voice barely holding it together. "You think I don't know how you talk about me behind my back? Do you think I don't hear you, Claire?" She looked at me, caught off guard. "What are you talking about?" she asked, defensive. "Don't play dumb. I heard you on the phone, talking about how I can't afford things, how I don't make enough money. But I've been busting my ass, day in and day out, to make sure you're comfortable. Do you even realize how selfish you're being?" The words came out of me like a dam breaking, everything I'd been bottling up flooding to the surface. She stared at me, wide-eyed, but I could see the annoyance flicker across her face. "David, stop," she said, rolling her eyes like I was being unreasonable. "I didn't mean it like that. I was just talking about the trip. Don't take everything so personally." I couldn't believe it. I had just laid out all the pain I'd been feeling for months, and she was brushing it off like I was overreacting. "You don't get it, Claire. You don't understand what it's like to sacrifice everything for this marriage, while you just go on with your life like it's all fine." "It's not fine." "I'm not fine," I said, my voice shaking. She sighed, clearly frustrated, and stood up. "You're blowing this way out of proportion." I was just joking around. It was like a slap in the face. I looked at her, my heart sinking, realizing just how little she understood me, how little she cared. All these years, I had been the one to make things work, and now I was finally seeing just how little it meant to her. That night, I went to bed angry, tossing and turning, unable to shake the feeling that everything was falling apart. I'd just confronted her about something that had been eating me up inside for so long, and all I got in return was dismissal. I was done. I didn't know how much more of this I could take. The days that followed that blow-up were pure hell. Claire barely spoke to me. When she did, it was all passive-aggressive comments and deflections. She'd act like nothing was wrong, like our marriage hadn't just shattered in a matter of minutes. And I spent my nights staring at the ceiling, replaying everything over and over again. The words she said, the way she brushed off everything I was feeling, it was like a knife twisting in my gut. I kept telling myself that maybe it was just a rough patch, that things would get better, that maybe I just needed to let it go. But deep down, I knew something had broken. And it wasn't something we could just fix with a quick apology or a heartfelt conversation. There was this one night about a week after the fight when I reached my breaking point. I'd gotten home late, exhausted, and ready to collapse into bed. But when I walked into the living room, Claire was sitting there on the couch, laughing with a friend on the phone again. I stood there for a moment watching her. She was so carefree, so unaffected. I was standing there, staring at her, and all of a sudden, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was completely invisible to her. All the sacrifices, all the effort I'd poured into this marriage, and she didn't even see me anymore that night. I realized how much I'd been drowning. I thought about everything, the long hours, the missed meals, the times I'd pushed aside my own dreams for hers. I thought about all the quiet resentment that had built up over the years. And for the first time, I saw how deep the wound was. How I'd been pouring my heart into a relationship that was draining me dry. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her and make her see how much I was hurting, but I couldn't. Instead, I went to bed, tears prickling at the corners of my eyes, holding it all inside because I knew I couldn't say a word. What good would it do? Claire wasn't going to change. She wasn't going to suddenly see me as a person, as her partner. I had been nothing more than the one who picked up the slack, the one who worked to keep everything afloat, while she coasted along, ignoring it all. And in that moment, I realized something else. I wasn't just invisible to her, I was invisible to myself. I had lost who I was in the process. The person I had been before I met Claire, the person who had dreams, hopes, and the energy to pursue them, was gone. I was stuck, trapped in a marriage that had become nothing more than a routine, a performance I was no longer interested in playing. That was the night I hit rock bottom. It all came to a head a few nights later, at a family dinner at Claire's parents' house. I had been dreading it all week. The thought of sitting at that dinner table, surrounded by her family, pretending everything was fine, it made my stomach turn. But I went anyway. It's what I did. I always played the role of the dutiful husband, the one who smiled through the tension, who kept quiet when he wanted to scream. The dinner started like any other. Her parents were as friendly as usual. Claire was her charming self, and I tried to hold it together, smile, and pretend everything was fine. But as the night went on, it became harder to ignore the elephant in the room. Claire kept talking about how lucky she was to have me, how hard I worked for us, and how she didn't know what she'd do without me. But there was something in her voice, something off, like she was trying too hard to convince herself. And then, out of nowhere, she dropped the bombshell. So, David's been so busy lately, he's barely even had time to go out with me, she said, with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. Honestly, he works so much, I almost feel bad for him. I mean, he doesn't exactly make enough to take me anywhere nice, so I've been going out with my friends instead. He'll have to catch up eventually, right? I froze. It was like the floor had been ripped out from under me. Her words, her casual dismissal of everything I had done for her, the complete lack of respect, it was all too much. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I wasn't sure if it was anger or hurt that flooded through me, but I knew one thing for sure: I couldn't take it anymore. I tried to laugh it off, tried to pretend like it didn't bother me, but inside, I was seething. I could feel my hands trembling, my face burning with humiliation. The whole table went silent. Claire looked at me confused, but she didn't realize the weight of what she'd just said. Her parents, oblivious to the tension in the room, laughed along. It's good to see you both having such a good time, her mom said, smiling. You two are so cute together. I felt sick to my stomach. Claire was playing the perfect wife, while I was the punchline of her joke. The narrative she'd spun for everyone was that I was the hard-working, dependable husband. But beneath the surface, she was mocking me for it. She was mocking everything I had sacrificed. I couldn't stay there any longer. The weight of everything I had been carrying, all the resentment, all the quiet frustration, it was too much. I stood up abruptly. I'm done, I said, my voice hoarse. Claire looked at me, her expression confused, her smile faltering. What are you talking about? I'm done pretending. I can't keep doing this, I said, my chest tight with emotion. I didn't care that her parents were sitting there, watching us. I didn't care if I was making a scene. I couldn't live in this lie anymore. I turned and walked out of the room, ignoring the calls behind me. I drove aimlessly that night. The anger was still simmering inside me, but there was also this strange sense of relief. I hadn't felt that light in months, maybe years. I didn't know where I was going, But I knew I couldn't go back to Claire. I couldn't pretend like everything was fine anymore. I felt like I had been walking around in a fog for so long, but now, for the first time, the fog was lifting when I finally parked outside our apartment. I sat there for a while, staring at the building. My hands were shaking, my heart was racing, but I knew what I had to do. I had reached my breaking point. I walked up the stairs to our door, my mind racing. What was I going to say? What could I say? How could I explain everything that had been building up for months now? Years without sounding like I was overreacting. But I didn't care anymore. Claire was sitting on the couch when I walked in, her back to me as she scrolled through her phone. I didn't even bother to say hello. I just walked straight to the kitchen, opened the drawer where we kept the important documents, and pulled out the divorce papers I had printed earlier that day. I could hear her getting up behind me, sensing something was wrong. David, what's going on? What are you doing? She asked, her voice strained with confusion. I didn't look at her. I couldn't, without a word. I placed the papers on the counter and slid them toward her. She looked at them, her eyes widening in disbelief. What is this? She asked, her voice cracking. David, what the hell is this? I turned to face her, my chest tight. It's over, Claire. I can't keep doing this. I've been carrying this marriage, carrying you, for so long, and you never even noticed. All the sacrifices, all the late nights, all the times I put my life on hold to make sure you had everything you wanted. And I stopped myself, trying to keep my voice steady. You mocked me tonight, in front of your family. You think I don't see how you talk about me behind my back? Her eyes darted to the papers again, then back to me, but she didn't seem to know how to react. David, please, she said, pleading now. Please don't do this. I didn't mean it, I swear. I was just joking. I didn't think it would hurt you. You know I appreciate everything you do for me. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. Do you? Do you really? Because if you appreciated me, you wouldn't treat me like a joke. I'm not your fucking punchline, Claire. I'm not here just to serve you. She looked like she was about to say something else, but I stopped her. I'm done. I'm done trying to make this work. And I'm done being treated like I don't matter. I watched her face twist, the realization sinking in. For the first time, I saw a flicker of something close to fear in her eyes. But I didn't care. I couldn't care anymore. I'll be out in the morning, I added, turning and walking toward the door. This is your life now, Claire. Live it without me. I left without another word, walking out into the night, the cold air biting at my skin. As I walked away, I didn't feel sadness. I didn't feel anger. I felt something else, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. The next few days were a blur. I moved out of our apartment, but Claire didn't let me go quietly. She called me constantly, left me messages, sent texts, and even showed up at my parents' house uninvited. Each time, I ignored her. I wasn't ready to listen. I had spent far too long giving in to her pleas, her excuses, her false promises. I had given her everything, and in return, she treated me like I was nothing. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore, but Claire wasn't about to let me go that easily. One afternoon, about 3 days after I left, I got a call. It was Claire. I almost didn't pick up, but something in me made me do it. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe just exhaustion from the emotional weight of it all. David, her voice cracked over the phone. Please, can we just talk? I took a deep breath, leaning against the kitchen counter. What do you want, Claire? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything, she said quickly, almost too quickly. I was wrong, okay? I was so wrong. I never meant to hurt you. I've been selfish, and I see that now. You've done everything for me, and I haven't appreciated it at all. I'll change, I swear. Just come back. We can fix this. We can make it work. I didn't answer at first. I could feel my pulse in my throat, my anger rising again. She sounded desperate, and for a second, I almost felt bad for her. She was sobbing now, her words stumbling over each other. Please, David, I love you. I need you. I can't live without you. I'll do anything. Just don't leave me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could she do this to me? How could she act like nothing had happened? Like I hadn't spent years giving up my own happiness just to make her comfortable, just to keep her happy. How could she twist everything around and make me feel like I was the one who was overreacting? Claire, it's too late, I said, my voice firm but quieter than I wanted it to be. You've had your chances. You don't get to just change overnight. I've heard it all before. You say you'll change, but you don't. And I'm done. There was a long silence on the other end. I could hear her breathing heavily, like she was trying to collect herself. I don't know what to say, she whispered. I love you, David. Please don't leave me. Please. I stood there, staring out the window, feeling a strange mix of guilt and relief. It was heartbreaking, but at the same time, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I don't believe you anymore, Claire. I'm done. The call ended with the faint sound of her sobbing, but I didn't feel the urge to call her back. I wasn't going to fall for her manipulations again. The days after that phone call were a blur. Claire didn't give up trying to contact me. She sent text after text, begging, apologizing, promising that everything would change. I ignored every single one. I couldn't go back. The damage had been done, and I wasn't willing to let her undo it with empty words anymore. But then, about a week later, I got a call from her again. This time, I couldn't ignore it. Something in her voice, fragile, desperate, told me this conversation was going to be different. I picked up, steeling myself for whatever she was about to say. David, she started, her voice barely above a whisper. I need to see you. Can we please just talk face to face? I didn't want to, but I agreed. I told myself I owed it to myself to hear her out. Part of me, I guess, was still clinging to the hope that she might understand the hurt she'd caused. Part of me wanted closure. We met at a small CAF, a place we used to go when things were good between us. It felt surreal, walking into that place without the weight of her beside me, without the comforting routine of us being us. I sat down, and she came in a few minutes later, looking different. Her makeup was smudged, her hair was disheveled, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. I could see the toll it had taken on her, but I didn't feel sympathy. I couldn't. David, she started, her voice shaking. She paused, trying to gather herself. I've been thinking a lot about everything, about how I treated you, about everything I've done to you. And I'm so sorry. I don't know how I let myself become this person. You didn't deserve any of it. I watched her, her words falling out in a frantic rush, but I wasn't moved. How many times had I heard this same script before? How many times had I been promised things would change, only to be let down? I wasn't going to let her do it again. You're sorry now. But where was that when I was doing everything for us? I said, my voice colder than I intended. Where was that when I was working myself into the ground so you could live the life you wanted, while you treated me like I was invisible? You never respected me, Claire. You never saw me for who I really was, just someone who could give you what you wanted when you needed it. She flinched at my words, but I wasn't done. I loved you. I gave everything. And you took it all for granted. You made me feel like I was nothing. And now, you're sitting here, begging for my forgiveness like I'm supposed to just forget everything. Well, I'm not. I can't. I've had enough. She looked like she was about to say something, but I held up my hand, cutting her off. No, Claire. This is the end. You've had your chances. I'm done. There was a long silence, the air thick between us. Claire was trembling now, her eyes filled with unshed tears. But it wasn't enough to make me second-guess my decision. She had hurt me too many times, and this time, I wasn't going to let her walk all over me again. I'm done, Claire, I said again, softer now, but firm. This is it. For a moment, she just stared at me, like she was waiting for me to take it all back. But I didn't. I stood up and walked away, leaving her sitting there, her eyes filled with disbelief. And as I walked out of that CAF, I knew this was the last time I'd ever let her break me. I had finally let go. In the weeks that followed, I tried to move on with my life. I focused on work, spent more time with friends, and slowly began to rebuild the sense of self I had lost during the years of putting Claire's needs ahead of my own. I felt like I was finally breathing again, no longer weighed down by the constant pressure of a relationship that had drained me. But as I began to heal, Claire's world started to crumble. It wasn't long before I started hearing things, little whispers, rumors from mutual friends, that Claire was struggling. She was living in the apartment we once shared, but it wasn't the same. She had stopped posting on social media, stopped going out with her friends as much, and started showing up at work looking tired and withdrawn. People who had once praised her for being the life of the party were now asking me what had happened to her. They couldn't believe how quickly she had spiraled. At first, I didn't care. I wasn't interested in her life anymore. But the stories kept coming. I heard from my best friend Mark, that Claire had gotten into a huge fight with her parents, something about money, I think. Apparently, they had stopped helping her financially, which had always been a crutch for her. Her friends had started backing off too, realizing she was no longer the carefree, fun person they once knew. She'd isolated herself, and it was clear that without me to take care of everything, she had no idea how to keep things together. Then came the real blow. I was at work one afternoon when I got a call from the bank. They told me that Claire had tried to take out a loan in my name. I had no idea how she thought she could get away with it, but the thought of her using my personal details without my knowledge sent a chill down my spine. She had been spending recklessly, unable to face the consequences of her actions. Without me paying the bills and cleaning up her messes, she had run into financial trouble faster than I could have imagined. The worst part, she called me the night after the bank's call, her voice sounding weak and broken. "David, I don't know what to do. Everything's falling apart. I am so sorry. I never realized how much I depended on you, how much I took you for granted. Please, I need help," she begged. I let it ring for a moment before picking up. "Claire, I'm not your safety net anymore. I'm not here to fix your life. You made your choices, but I don't have anyone else," she whispered, a desperation in her voice I had never heard before. "I'm so sorry for everything. Please, please help me." I could hear the panic in her voice, and for a brief moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered everything. All the years of sacrifice, of giving her everything while she took me for granted. I had been the one always putting in more, and she had never once shown any true appreciation. "I can't help you, Claire," I said, my voice steady but cold. "You're going to have to face the consequences of your choices. You're the one who has to fix this now. I'm not coming back," she begged me again, pleaded with me to help her, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. The old me would have caved, but not anymore. I wasn't her savior. I wasn't going to be anyone's doormat anymore. I hung up the phone, my hand shaking. But this time, it wasn't from fear or anger, it was from the weight lifting of my chest. I had let her go, and I had let go of the idea that I could fix everything for her. Her life had unraveled because she refused to face the truth, and that wasn't my burden to carry anymore. For the first time in years, I felt free. It's been a few months since that phone call. Claire and I haven't spoken since, and to be honest, I don't think I ever want to again. I've been moving forward, step by step, and the further I get from that toxic chapter of my life, the more I realize just how much I was suffocating in that marriage. At first, I was afraid. I was afraid that maybe, just maybe, I'd made a mistake. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe things could have been fixed if I just gave her one more chance. But then I remembered how I felt every time I walked into our apartment, how I felt like I was invisible, how every sacrifice I made was just expected and never appreciated. And the worst part, I'd let myself believe that was normal. I'd let myself believe that I wasn't worthy of better. But now I see the truth. I've been working on myself in ways I never allowed myself before. I've started going to the gym, something I used to put off because I was always too tired from working so much to support her. I'm reading books again, something I loved to do before everything with Claire took over. And I've even started talking to someone, a therapist. It's been hard, but I'm finally facing all the things I buried for so long, and it feels good. It feels like I'm rediscovering the person I used to be before Claire came into my life, before I put her needs ahead of my own. I'm learning how to live for myself again, and it's more empowering than I ever imagined. I've reconnected with old friends, people I lost touch with because Claire always had to be the center of attention. It's like I'm finally able to breathe again, without the weight of her expectations and criticisms on my shoulders. For the first time, I'm not just existing, I'm living, and the best part, I'm not angry anymore. I used to carry so much rage in my chest, but now, it's like that anger is slowly slipping away. I'm not bitter about the past. I don't want to dwell on it. What's important now is that I'm free. I'm free to choose my own path. Free to be who I want to be without worrying about anyone else's approval or expectations. I've learned a lot about myself during these months. I've learned that I'm strong, stronger than I ever gave myself credit for. And that's something I'll never forget. As for Claire, I've heard through the grapevine that things aren't going well for her. She's been struggling, financially and emotionally. Apparently, she's tried to reach out to me again, but I haven't responded. And you know what? I don't feel bad. I don't feel guilty. She made her choices. and now she has to live with them. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know this. I am never going to let myself fall back into the trap. I deserve more than that. I deserve respect. I deserve someone who sees me as a partner, not as a backup plan. I'm starting fresh. And that's all I could ask for. It's been 6 months now, and I can't tell you how much I've changed. I've been working on my career, focusing on myself, and even starting to date again. Though that's a slow process, I'm in a better place than I ever was with Claire, and every day feels like a step further away from the nightmare I once lived. But there's still this part of me that can't completely ignore what's been happening to Claire. I've heard bits and pieces from mutual friends. Apparently, her life has fallen apart in a way I never imagined it could. The financial mess she had gotten herself into only got worse. She tried to salvage things, but without me covering for her. She didn't have the skills to keep it all together. The house she had bought, well, she had to sell it. The lifestyle she had been so accustomed to, gone. I heard from my old colleague Sarah that Claire had even tried to reach out to my family for help. My parents had refused. They told me they weren't going to bail her out after everything that had happened. They'd seen the toll she'd taken on me, the way she'd manipulated me, and they weren't willing to support her just because she'd hit rock bottom. Claire had no one left to turn to. No one who would help her now. Then one day, I got a message from her. I hadn't heard from her in months. It was a text, short and to the point. David, I need you. I can't keep doing this alone. Please, just help me one last time. I stared at the screen for a long time. Part of me, just a small part, felt the old pull, the old guilt. But then I remembered everything. I remembered how many times she'd promised she'd change, how many times she'd said she'd appreciate me, only to go back to her old ways. I remembered all the nights I'd spent lying awake, wondering why I wasn't enough, why I wasn't worthy of respect. I took a deep breath and typed out my response. I'm sorry, but I can't help you. I am not your safety net anymore. You have to take responsibility for your choices, just like I did. I hit send before I could second guess myself, and I felt a wave of calm wash over me. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel like I was abandoning her. I was standing up for myself, for the person I had become. I heard from a friend a few weeks later that Claire had moved back in with her parents. She was struggling, and honestly, I think she was starting to realize how much she had taken me for granted. But it was too late for me. This chapter is over. I've moved on, and I'm never looking back. It's not about revenge. It's not about rubbing her nose in her failure. It's about realizing that I'm worth more than the treatment I got from her. I spent too many years sacrificing my happiness, my well-being, for someone who didn't deserve me. Now, I know what I'm worth. If there's one thing I can leave you with, if you're in a relationship where you feel invisible, unappreciated, or worse, take a step back. Don't let yourself be the person who keeps giving without receiving. Don't wait until you've lost yourself in the process, because the moment you start choosing yourself, that's when your life starts to change. And for me, I'm finally starting to live for me. And it feels damn good.